Kaido's words had lingered in the air like a question neither of us dared to answer aloud. I think it might unlock something inside me. Rin and I exchanged glances, one that was heavy with unspoken thoughts. Was this some sort of metaphor, a joke? Or was there truly more to this key than met the eye? Mr. Whiskers, ever the opportunist, saw his chance to insert himself into the drama, or at least steal our attention, and leapt onto Kaido's arm, purring loudly while batting at his sleeve with a single paw. Kaido didn't flinch. Instead, he reached out slowly as if Mr. Whiskers were some rare, delicate creature rather than a cat who had once knocked over my prized indestructible mug. It was indestructible. Until the day it wasn't. You don't seem afraid of cats, I remarked, because silence is an uncomfortable beast and I am always the one to break it. Kaido's fingers brushed Mr. Whiskers' fur, and the cat, in a moment of feline confusion, allowed him to scratch behind his ears, something no one but Rin was ever permitted to do without risking injury. I don't mind them, Kaido said softly. They're straightforward. Rin scoffed under her breath. Straightforward is not how I would describe a cat. I grinned. Agreed, but that's the beauty of it, isn't it? They do what they want when they want and the rest of us just try to keep up. Kaido smiled faintly, another one of those rare fleeting smiles that made his eyes crinkle slightly at the corners. You're different than I expected. I tilted my head. Oh, and how so? He hesitated, then said, most people would be more cautious about touching a key like this, as if it were dangerous. I looked down at the crescent moon-shaped metal in my palm. It was smooth under my fingers, warm from Kaido's touch. It is dangerous, I admitted, but only if you let it be. Rin sighed, Momo. Kaido studied me for a long moment, then said, I'd like to see what happens if you use this with the cat. My pulse quickened, because this was not just about making a singing tale anymore. This was about something far bigger, and I hated when things got big. Cue the dramatic pause. All right, I said, though my voice came out slightly squeakier than intended. But if anything weird happens... You're blaming Rin. Rin finished for me. I nodded sagely, obviously. She rolled her eyes but didn't argue further. Kaido stepped closer to the workshop centerpiece. A mechanical cat we had been modifying, its brass body gleaming under the dim light of the muse lanterns. Its tail, now a tangle of gears and strings that was supposed to produce music, lay limp against its side. I took a deep breath, then pressed the key into one of the smaller slots on its back, a spot I had always thought was decorative but now wondered if it had a purpose. Nothing happened at first. The workshop stayed quiet, save for the faint hum of distant machinery and the occasional creak of the buildings around us. Then a vibration. Not from the cat, which remained still, but from the key itself. It pulsed slightly in my grip as if it recognized something or someone and was responding to it. I gasped, pulling back. Did you? Kaido's expression shifted just for a second. He looked almost pained. Momo, he said, voice tight, tell me if the cat moves. I frowned, then nodded. Right, got it. I pressed the key against the cat again. And this time, the tail twitched. Not like a normal cat's tail. No flicking or swishing, but in a way that was far too deliberate, as if it were being guided by something beyond mere instinct. Then, so softly I almost missed it, the strings vibrated. A single note escaped, the same sad sigh we had been testing for weeks. But this time it felt alive, as if the cat were humming along with its own tail, and the sound carried a weight that made my chest tighten. Rin's breath hitched. Momo. I blinked rapidly, trying to process what was happening, Had I miscalculated something? Was this some side effect of the keys? Magic? Yes, I am allowed to say magic in this context. This is my story. Then Kaido took a step forward, his gaze fixed on the cat. And he asked, a voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed hard, and it sounds like a question. A question that no one had bothered to ask aloud. Well, we spent the next hour in stunned silence, prodding the cat with tweezers, tapping on its gears, and generally treating it like it was some kind of mechanical oracle, which I suppose it sort of was. The tail now produced a melody that shifted slightly when Kaido was near, as if reacting to his presence. Sometimes it would hum a lullaby, other times it sounded like a question. Why do you stay? Rin and I exchanged glances, but neither of us spoke. Because what do you say after discovering that a mechanical cat has been emotionally manipulating your customer? Mr. Whiskers, never one to be outdone by a mechanical counterpart, leapt onto the cat's head and began grooming its ears as if he were inspecting it for defects. Kaido watched all this with an expression that was equal parts awe and bewilderment. This is beyond what I expected. I scratched my head because I was still reeling from the revelation that a simple key could do this. You know, I always thought my inventions were just, well, inventions, not something with, feelings. Rin snorted, Momo. Kaido chuckled softly, another one of those rare smiles. Perhaps you're right that chaos is creativity. Maybe what you're making isn't just a machine, it's something that learns to sing its own story. I blinked. That sounds very poetic for someone who usually just says yes or no. He shrugged, but his ears twitched slightly, something I noticed he did when he was lying. A useful skill in my line of work. Sometimes I surprise myself. Rin, ever the voice of practicality, cleared her throat. So, what now? Kaido looked at me, then at the cat, its tail still humming a soft, questioning melody. I want to see if this works on me, he said. My mouth fell open. What? Rin's eyes widened. Momo no. But Kaido ignored us, reaching into his coat and producing another key. This one was identical to the first, but it glowed faintly, as if lit from within by some unseen fire. I used my mother's key to modify this one, he explained. But now I think, perhaps there's more to unlock than just music. I swallowed hard. Kaido-san, you can't just... Momo, Rin interrupted, her tail flicking with agitation. This is not the time for your usual recklessness. I know, I hissed back at her. Kaido held out the glowing key, his grip firm but not unkind. I need you to try this on me. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy with the weight of what he was asking. Then, because I am who I am, I said the one thing that could have made this moment worse. Well, if you insist, but I'm holding you responsible if something goes wrong. Kaido's lips quirked, just for a second, but he nodded. Agreed. Well, now, my dear reader, I must confess that I have never been one for drama. I prefer the quiet hum of gears turning to the thunderous crash of emotions unleashed. But if you had asked me what I would choose between inventing a singing cat tail or witnessing some kind of transcendental unlocking, I might have hesitated. Then again, I also might have chosen a nap over either, but that's beside the point. Kaido stood perfectly still as Rin and I approached him, the glowing key clutched in my sweaty palm. His posture was rigid, his fingers flexing slightly, like he was bracing for something. All right, I said, voice steadier than I felt. This might tickle a little, so don't blame me if you giggle. Rin shot me a look that could have curdled milk. Momo. I ignored her. I pressed the key against Kaido's chest, specifically, to a small circular indentation I hadn't noticed before. It was cold under my fingers, but it pulled slightly, as if inviting something inside him to surface. Then a sound. It started low, a hum, like the distant echo of wind through leaves, and built into something deeper, richer. A melody that was sung, it was remembered. Kaido's breath hitched. His eyes fluttered shut for a second before snapping open again, sharp and bright with something I couldn't quite name. Momo, he said, voice rough, can you? Yes, yes, I said quickly, because even in this moment of whatever this was, my brain was fixating on one thing. I told you it might tickle. Rin groaned, oh my god. Kaido let out a shaky laugh, half surprise, half something like relief. And then, without warning, his ears began to sprout. Not fox ears, not human ones, but something in between, long, pointed with a faint sheen of fur along the edges. I blinked, then I blinked again. Did you just, grow cat features? Rin finished for me. Kaido's fingers brushed his new ears as if testing their shape. It feels right. A silence fell over us, broken only by the soft hum of the mechanical cat's tail, still singing its quiet melody in the background. I cleared my throat. So, what does this mean? Kaido exhaled slowly, then met my gaze. I think I've been suppressing something for a long time, and now that it's out. He trailed off, looking down at his hands, where faint, shimmering markings had begun to appear along his knuckles. Rin crossed her arms. Momo, this is way over your head. I swallowed hard. You're telling me, but you know what they say about curiosity and cats. She sighed, don't mix them in experiments, don't chase lasers. That cats have 9 lives but only 2 for humans. I waved my hand dismissively. None of those. What I was going to say is, when the impossible becomes possible, even a Nico woman knows it's time to grab the popcorn and settle in for the show. Kaido smirked just slightly, but there was no mistaking it. Momo, he said, I think we're about to find out what really happens when you unlock something inside. And if that doesn't give you goosebumps under your clothes, then I must be doing my job as a storyteller very poorly indeed. Well, to be continued.